Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing a card project that I created for the Pinkfresh Studio monthly challenge. This month's theme is all things holiday and it has a fabulous color scheme attached to it. So I'm going to do it Carissa style here. And I'm also kind of combining a couple of card ideas and kind of Carissifying them a little bit. So I'm going to be featuring the Pinkfresh Studio Swirl background stencil set, and I'm going to be stenciling onto this blush colored cardstock. So I saw Shannon Pelletier do this and I thought it was so beautiful. And like I said, I had to Carissify it just a little bit. And I think the colors that she used were the little cooler colored pinks. Today I am using some warmer colored pinks. So I'm starting out with stencil number 1 and I'm putting this just into the corner of my Misty stamping tool. And I used Coral Reef for the first stencil. Now, every time I put a new stencil in, I'm going to make sure that my cardstock and my stencil are in that lower left-hand corner of my Misty stamping tool. And that means that when this is all said and done, all of these stencils will align perfectly. Now, for my second stencil, I am using the color Passion Fruit, and I'm just blending that on. Then I'm going to bring in stencil number 3, just making sure everything is nestled into that lower left-hand corner. And I am going to stencil this stencil in Candy Apple ink. So I'm using reds and pinks here because of course that just screams holiday, and I love these colors blended onto this blush colored cardstock. Now for stencil number 4, I am going to use Ballet Slipper ink. And this is really light. And so on this blush colored cardstock, it's going to be very tone on tone. But I'm going to add this on just a little bit heavier so that I can be assured that when this is all said and done and everything's dried, you're going to be able to see the difference in that color. And I removed that and I was pretty happy with it. Now I wanted to add a little holiday sparkle to this, and so I am using this Vicki Boutin Iridescent Sparkle Gel stuff. I'm not paste, whatever it is. And I've positioned stencil number 5, and I'm using this flexible spatula from Tonic Studios to just kind of press this into that 5th stencil. Now, when you are using a paste or a gel or a glitter, whatever, when you're done with that, you want to make sure that you really clean your stencil and your tool quickly so that it doesn't dry on your stencil. You don't want this on there long term. You just need it on there for a bit. I've kind of scraped up the excess and added it back to my jar. And when I pull this off, you're going to see this beautiful kind of iridescent white accent to this pattern. And I think this is so beautiful. Now I put this on really thin, so it's going to dry fairly quickly, but I'm going to set it aside. And I'm going to use the Festive Leaves stencil set from Pinkfresh Studio. And I'm going to do a little ink blending to create some greenery for my card. Now the combination of products that I'm using today was inspired by a Pinkfresh Studio craft hour with Jeff Lindbergh and Marie Nicole. And she used these products in combination. And I thought, like I said, I was kind of inspired by a couple of different people. And I'm kind of combining those two cards that I saw to kind of make it my own here. And she used the Merry and Bright hot foil plate along with these festive leaves to create a really beautiful kind of layout here. And mine's going to be very similar to that. But as I said, I'm kind of changing it up a little. So I am using these stencils, and I've used Meadow and Emerald City to add the greens to this festive leaves. Now, some of those weren't quite intense enough for me, so I went back and added more color just by positioning those stencils in that lower left-hand corner. And when I know I'm going to cut something out, sometimes I feel like using the corner of my Misty or some kind of T-square or squared off type product like a stencil mat really makes layering stencils very easily. And it means I don't have to look through it and try to line things up. I can just make sure that everything's in the corner every time, and I'm assured that it's all going to turn out perfectly. So for the berries, I used Coral Reef ink, of course, and then I accented that with the passion fruit. And now I'm going to use the coordinating die and run this through my die cut machine, and I'll have all of this festive leaves greenery to add to my card front. Now, as I mentioned before, this card was created for the Pinkfresh Studio monthly challenge, and you can head on over to the Pinkfresh Studio challenge blog and play along. There are prizes to be had, people. So don't miss out on your opportunity. It's a great opportunity for inspiration as well. So now I am going to foil my Merry and Bright sentiment for this card. And I have to tell you, I am using the Satin foil from Spellbinders for this, and it is fabulous. I went and ordered like 4 more boxes because I'm obsessed with how this turned out. Look at how beautiful this is. There's something about that satin foil, and let me tell you, it foiled beautifully. And I'm using the Hammer Mill cardstock for this today. And then I'm going to use the coordinating die and die cut that out. Now you're going to see my layout coming together here on the left side of the screen here in just a moment. And I wanted to create some layering effects with this. So I'm using that same die, and I'm die cutting some vellum. I'm also going to die cut 3 or 4 layers of white cardstock and have those off to the side. And I figured out my layout, but I don't want to pick up this foiled piece with a sticky mat, which is how I'm planning on kind of keeping this all together. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of removing the berries that are on top. I'm removing the foiled piece and I'm replacing it with a plain white die cut in the same spot. And then I'm going to take a Misty sticky mat and I am going to pick up all of these pieces at once so they stay in the same exact spot. I'm not gonna have to try to figure this out. So I've laid that down. I've allowed the Misty sticky mat to stick to that plain white sentiment piece as well as all the greenery. You can see it's staying in place there. And then I'm gonna flip this over and I'm going to add glue so that all of this greenery is going to be attached to that white die cut piece. Now this white die cut piece is going to allow me to add some dimension to my sentiment. So I'm not really worried that I have an extra piece in there. And I picked that up off my Misty sticky mat using a spatula. And now I'm going to add the vellum piece behind this offset from that white die cut sentiment. So I'm just building up the layers here, and by adding the greenery behind that white one, it's going to give that a little bit of dimension as well. Now on the top of this, I'm adding the foiled piece, so that will be the very top. And then I'm going to flip this over and add about 3 more pieces of white die cuts behind that so that I have plenty of dimension. I am taking one of the Pinkfresh Studio diagonal stitched rectangles and die cutting my swirl background. And before I do anything else with this, I'm going to add some shimmer spritz to this. I thought it needed sparkle because if you can't sparkle all the things at the holidays, then I don't know when you can. Well, I do it anyway. It doesn't matter. That's just me. Here's a look at that, and you can't really see the sparkle on camera, which is really a shame, but in real life, it just has so much sparkle and so much shine, and I absolutely love that. Now I'm adding some liquid glue behind this stacked up set of white cardstock sentiments there, and I added that to my card front. And then I'm going to create an ornament, and I decided I wanted to add a little bit of blue to this card project, and that's because there's a little bit of blue in the challenge color palette. So I'm using Hero Art's Arctic cardstock along with that satin foil that I used earlier from Spellbinders and the Pinkfresh Studio Ornaments hot foil plate, and those are absolutely beautiful. I used the coordinating die to die cut out all of those ornaments at once. And now I can finish assembling my card. So I added some liquid glue to those stacked up white die cuts and I added my foil piece on top. I grabbed my sky blue ink from Pinkfresh Studio and I'm adding just a little bit of ink blending along the bottom to add a little bit of shading. Then I grabbed some gold thread and I tied that in a bow. I used 2 strands of that and placed it at the top of my ornament using some liquid glue. And I held that in place while it dried with those tweezers there. Now I placed this entire thing using foam adhesive onto a card base that I created that actually measures 5 by 6¼ inches. And yes, that's a weird size, but I felt like that it just fit this card a little bit better than an A2 and a little bit better than a 5 by 7. And there's no laws against making your own custom size card bases. This will fit nicely into a 5x7 envelope. I finished off the card by adding that foiled ornament there, and I think this is absolutely beautiful. I think it's fun to take some inspiration from some other designers or creators and kind of make it your own. So this definitely doesn't feel like the other cards that were created, but it has elements of those cards. I've added a little bit of that vellum layering behind that sentiment there, which I think makes it just so beautiful and ethereal. And I love all of the gold foil and the sparkle and shine on this project. As always, I will have links to the featured products used in this project in the description at YouTube. So if you're looking for something in particular, be sure to check there. Or you can head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies. As always, I'm so thankful that you've stopped by and hung out with me today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to subscribe and turn on the notifications here on my YouTube channel so you don't miss any of my paper crafting and card making video tutorials that I share here. And if you love this video, I would love it if you would share it with a friend. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.